All right, people, we are live with episode number 2 of Reason is Rising cast. I think that's what the title is that we're going to stick to. So if we change it in the future, I'm sorry about that, but that's where we're at right now. If you didn't watch episode 1, I'm Leaf Colt. I'm here with Phil Davey, Ryan Flynn.
Heyo.
Two great friends of mine and big thinkers. Phil and I had a previous podcast called One Thing Straight. Ryan is, as I like to describe, a firebrand atheist, but he might not agree with that description so much.
Dial it down a little bit. Not quite firebrand anymore.
Exactly.
Blowtorch atheist?
I don't know. I'll have to come up with a good, accurate name for it. Yeah.
Yeah. And the label doesn't really matter. It's
Right.
just, if we were on a news network and no one had ever seen you before, and it was just Ryan Flynn on the bottom, they'd be like, Ryan Flynn, why?
Right.
And that's not the only reason you're here. You're just, you're obviously always putting a lot of thought into everything you say. So what we're trying to do for you viewers is have some discussions. We're trying to fill our time. We're trying to look for answers. And there's a lot of questions that need to be talked about right now. So we are going to do our best to hash some stuff out and see where this conversation takes us. If you do like this video, or if you want us to keep making content in the future, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. It's very easy. It's going to be down there somewhere. So again, we like to get your feedback. We like to know your support. Leave comments, subscribe, and we will keep talking like this over and over into infinity.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
And beyond.
So before we get into it, guys, I want to do a little mental check-in. I know for myself today has been a pretty rough one. How are you guys doing with everything?
I'm doing swell. I've had a pretty easygoing day. I've been inside the whole day. Had the boys go out and make a couple of rounds around the block on their scooters. But everything's fine over here. How about you, Phil?
Over here we're good. We actually ventured out for the first time today. We did some responsible interaction, social distancing. Called my good friend George at Bevco and placed her order for some hooch for the weekend, and placed her order with him. And they've got quite the system where you pull into the parking lot. You can't park. You pull in the parking lot in line and proceed in a clockwise fashion. And you're identified. They bring your whatever you need, whatever your wants or desires are, they bring it right out to the car. You make your payment there with the credit card, and then go home without actually having to interact on any closer personal level with anybody.
That's
and
cool.
We went and grabbed some firewood for a bonfire this evening, and out from the front of the gas station. And and they of course meet you there, and so we were able to get some of the essentials that we needed for our long weekend, which will extend until next weekend, and did it in a responsible fashion.
So there's two things there that I'm interested about. You said the key word, which is essentials. That's something that we plan on talking about today. So we'll get into that right after this. But where was that again? Did you say that was Beverage Co.?
Yeah, the beverage company in Traverse City.
Great.
And you call ahead, you place your order, and they package it, get it ready for you. And anything in the store that you want or need, they bring right out to your car in a drive-through fashion.
Is that only optional? Is that mandatory? Are they doing
Mandatory.
in-store sales?
I'm not sure if it's predicated by law that they do that, but I know they're
their
doing
own
it
personal preference.
For their employees' reasons and for the sake of the people buying.
That's awesome. That's
Yep.
good. I would like to see that from more stores personally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know that, and again, we'll get into more of this here in a couple minutes, but more of the big box stores and stuff like that. I think if you are an essential business right now, or someone who has been deemed essential, that just going about business as normal is unacceptable. Like, if you are going to be open and you are essential, obviously we need your services, but you should be doing everything you can in your power to minimize any kind of exposure and not just go about business as normal. Be like, oh, well, we're essential, so we'll just do the same thing we were doing yesterday, you know?
Right.
It's a time when even if you are working, everybody can do at least one or two things to try a little bit to, you know,
And
help
they're
them.
doing that. You know, a lot of the local establishments are making these extra steps and efforts to be compliant, not only by the law, but just for out of respect for humanity as we're going through this cloud of ugliness. And they're steps that I applaud. If I see a business that isn't complying by some of these or taking some of these steps to keep people safe, I won't patronize them or patronize them.
Yeah. I think that's a pretty valid point here. And we've talked about this a lot in prior podcasts and just in conversations, Phil, that if you don't believe in something, you can choose to go online and make a nasty review or something like that. But it's the most powerful thing you can do is really voting with your dollar and really making your choices there. Oh, I don't like what's going on over here, so I'm going to drive an extra 15 minutes. And me and my wife are actually even doing that ourselves. We live right by a grocery store, you know, what you would call a block away. And they have not changed anything about what they're doing there. There was the last 2 times we went, I don't think I saw a single employee with gloves on. I had to buy some alcohol from there, and the lady who came up to check my ID was like coughing. And this was probably about 2 weeks ago, so I wasn't quite as paranoid, but that's just kind of unacceptable to me. So when we do our grocery shopping, we're actually driving all the way to the other side of town and going to the grocery store where we do see employees wearing gloves. I was actually just in there today, speaking of essentials, buying some alcohol and some other things, you know, eggs and meat. But they now have sneeze guards up in front of where the cashiers are. So instead of just the cashier standing right in front of you, those things are right next to each other. You can social distance 6 feet all you want, but at some point you're going to have to hand them your card or whatever. So they have, like, think of it when you go to like a bank, sometimes they'll have those bulletproof glass there with the window in it. And that's basically what they have right in front of every single cashier.
Yeah,
I've seen those too.
Yeah, I'm like, awesome. That's great. Like, you guys are here, you know, yes, you're essential. People need to buy groceries, but not just for the safety of the customers, but for the safety of your workers, you need to have kind of stuff like that in place. And any little thing you can do makes a big difference. So again, we vote with our dollars. That's where we'll go.
We're pretty lucky here in the sleepy little town of Kingsley, where I live, that we've got this quaint little grocery store, Northland Grocery Store. Big shout out to them. I fully expected that they would kind of be behind the times, right? But last time we went there to go into the store to go shopping, which is a couple of weeks ago, everyone was masked up, everyone was gloved up. They were doing one-touch glove scenarios where they would handle one customer, take these off, handle the next customer, take them off. And it's actually evolved to the point where they've opened up an online buying path that you can order exactly what you want from your phone and pick it up curbside. So we tried that over the weekend, and we ordered exactly what we needed, pulled up in a designated spot right in front that says for pickup only, opened up the back hatch, the kid walked out, put everything in the back, closed it up, and we came home.
Nice.
That is beautiful. It's funny though. Do you guys feel, what's your impression? Do you think that more places are doing that right now, or that the majority is people who really haven't changed anything?
I think it's definitely shifting on a week-to-week basis. And I see that not only in safety protocols in places like this, like I saw some sneeze guards at the local Olson's, you know, here in Petoskey. But I'm also seeing more and more people wear masks when I go out and about. I mean, like a week ago, I feel like the numbers have doubled, you know, and like maybe even tripled in like the last week since I last went out for groceries. So I'm definitely seeing an evolution. People starting to think more. They're having more time to think and react. And I think they also, other than just doing the right thing, businesses are also concerned about providing the right optics to show that they actually care and that reassure customers that it's a safer place to maybe come into and buy their essential goods and needs and stuff. So I definitely noticed the change.
Yeah, I think that's one thing that is important for everyone to kind of remember as we're talking about the virus and even policy stuff, government stuff, even your opinions about, what businesses are open. Stuff is changing so quick right now, and rightfully so. This is an evolving situation. Most of us have never been in a situation like this before, and that isn't just the citizens. This is the businesses. This is our lawmakers. And I definitely found myself guilty of this probably about 2 weeks ago. Calling people out or saying, well, this is the way it is. This is unacceptable. I remember a post I made about the amount of essential businesses. And when I have to drive into town, I drive by this store, this store, this store, this store. It seems like there's 80% of the stores are still open. And now, obviously, all of those places or most of those places have now closed or altered their business the way they're doing it. And there's been things like that just change on a dime. I know last episode we were talking about how it's hard to stay up to date with even the political side of this. Like, oh, well, the law's been passed. Well, no, the law hasn't been passed yet. And well, I didn't check my phone in the last 20 minutes, so let me find out. And it's the speed at which these things is going is so crazy. So not just for myself, but for any of the listeners out there, I think that's an important thing to keep in mind is just because it's this way right now, or because a business is acting this way right now, doesn't mean that tomorrow they're going to make a complete change. And we've seen a lot of businesses like this. Hobby Lobby, I think, was one of the big ones who was trying to stay open. And there's a fair amount of businesses that we can talk about in this category. But so Hobby Lobby is pretty much a craft store. I've actually never been in there, but I'd assume like a Joann Fabrics, Ben Franklin's kind of store. And they were probably about a week ago, a letter from the CEO went out to the employees basically saying it's in God's hands. We're not going to close down. We're all going to have to tighten our belts. We're not going to offer extra pay or anything like that because we have to tighten our belts. And so it was a big hubbub about that. And then they decided that they were going to stay open. And I think in a lot of the states where there were shutdown orders for non-essential businesses, they were trying to claim that they were an essential business. And so just today, before we started recording, I've now seen a couple different Hobby Lobby locations are going to be closing. So I'm not sure if in those specific locations, if that's because of the public outcry or because of extra pressure from the government. It's hard to say.
Did they give you any indication in the article that you read about what they were trying to utilize to categorize themselves as essential? What's essential? I mean, I'm an artist, you're an artist. My art is essential to me. But if I run out of paint, if I run out of canvas, I'm going to do something else. There's really nothing essential about widgets and tchotchkes and family love that you hang on the side of your wall when you walk in. None of that stuff is essential. So I'm interested to find out what type of mental gymnastics they went through to get to the point where they were saying that they were essential.
Yeah. And that's the question, and that's, where what we can get into in this part of our conversation is definitely what is essential, what makes you essential. Not only was it Hobby Lobby, we do have a location here in Traverse City where I live, but we have, I would say, more Joann Fabrics in Michigan. It's a bigger chain. And Joann Fabrics actually just got a letter from the Attorney General of Michigan telling them to close down. And we don't care if you guys think you're essential. We don't care if you're exempt. Because essentially Joann Fabrics has been operating since Michigan's shutdown order, business as usual, and claiming that their arts and crafts supplies are an essential. So that is a very good question. What is the reasoning they need to do? It's, again, I'm a person who's very in with creativity and art, and that is something that's very important to me. Like, if I don't do that, I die. It doesn't have to be this specific painting. It doesn't have to be this drawing, but if I'm not creating, it's going to be very detrimental. So I get that. But when I hear them trying to say that they're essential, it's laughable. And that's to put it lightly.
If their products or their inventory were essential towards making gowns or masks or things along that nature, then I feel like they should just be giving those, and maybe with some kind of government rebate, giving those to manufacturers to create these things, not just open the whole store so that Joe Blow can come in and buy whatever little craft pillow they want, or like a decorative mirror. Like if they are trying to argue there's something essential there, well, let's put those products that are essential that could help us protect ourselves into the right people's hands, not just open up to the public like that. So yeah, I don't know what they were trying to sling there, but I'm assuming I wouldn't be buying it.
Well, I can.
Their prayers weren't answered.
Yeah.
I was trying to find an exact response from Jo-Ann Fabrics, and without doing too much fact checking, which I should do, here's an article from an ABC affiliate based out of Lansing. So they're close to where our capital is. I'd like to think if you're in a larger city, you're probably going to have a higher standard of journalism. And here they're saying that the craft retailer asked to remain open because they sold materials which can use to be face masks, gowns, scrubs, and other protective equipment. So you were spot on, Ryan. That's exactly how they were trying to get their foot in the door. However, the Attorney General of Michigan said that, well, guess what? You can ship all that stuff online just as easy.
There you go.
No reason your door needs to be open. And so this article is actually saying that Jo-Ann is going to close here. So I don't know if that's out of state or if that's only in Michigan, but that's just, again, this article was from one day ago. It's just another example of how things are changing minute to minute.
How about right now, when we picked up some groceries the other day from Meijer, Big B Coffee was open. They're the outlet inside the Meijer store. So it's not like they're, on their own or anything like that. But I couldn't help but think, okay, is it because they sell food and beverages? Like, are they selling essential quad shot grande caramel mochas with sprinkles now and essential scones to go with it? Like, 2020 is clearly the year that we are essentials become legally subjective, apparently, and it's kind of interesting to see them try to wiggle this in here or there, and how they try to do it.
Yeah, that's a really good question, and it's a complex issue. So as much as I have been complaining in personal conversations and online about this business being essential or how can this business be open, I do not envy our lawmakers at all, because it's so complex. So I was just talking to my wife the other day, and I was like, gosh, like how can all of these stores along this drag still be open? And you see like Meijer open, you see Walmart open, you see this store, that store. Like, why don't, if they really want us to social distance and make it only life-sustaining businesses, they should close all of them except for one. And then, of course, the conversation is, well, who decides who gets to stay open? Who decides who gets to stay closed? And where do you draw that line? Okay, food and beverage is definitely essential. We all need to eat. We all need to drink. Do you need a triple quad shot grande mocha? Probably not, So where is that line? And, I think the response would be more effective if we were able to draw that line. But is it even possible to do that, without getting completely political? Like, do you guys think that's something that if we had our shit more together that we could have done?
I'll just say real quick that I think it's a messy process, but it's you need to go through that process regardless of how messy or complex it is. And then if you got 70% of them to close down, that would be a victory over 50% of them to close down, so it all should help flatten the curve, so to speak, in its own right. So
we have to remind ourselves that as human beings, as humanity, we've never gone through something like this, right? And if we didn't have the vast array of places to shop at before. We've never lived in a country or a world that's this bountiful, where we have 5 different coffee shops on one corner. We've got multiple different places to buy groceries. There are specialty shops for everything under the sun. And so I do feel for the lawmakers, because they're trying to discern through just weights and measures about what is essential and what isn't. So it's new territory we're venturing into here. So we do have to cut these lawmakers and the people that are making these decisions some slack during this process, but yet hold them to the fire as well.
Absolutely.
It's a tough thing. I think the more I think about politics and talk about politics, and then whenever you're not arguing or debating or talking about it, someone's be like, well, what would you do? What would your plan be? And the more I respond to questions like that, the more I realize that the line between strong and effective government policy and fascism is very, very fine. And it can be crossed just like that. Because let's say that the government was like, okay, yeah, we're going to come in. Everyone's going to get shut down unless you're essential. Food and beverage will still be open. However, we are only going to have one grocery store per 500 people open. So if there's 2 grocery stores across the street, one of you guys is going to close down. To make that call and to be like, only this grocery store is going to be closed down, or, even right now they're doing Meijer and Walmart and Target in Vermont. Actually, Vermont just put out a letter to those stores saying you are no longer allowed to sell non-essential products. Your food, your beverage is okay. Your pharmacy is okay. There's probably some other exceptions, but clothing, an exercise yoga mat, video games, those are not essential. You cannot sell those anymore whatsoever. If you want to sell those, you can either do like a delivery, sell it online, or I think they're going to allow them to do like a drive up where the employees bring it out, but you're not going to be allowed to go into the store. So even
don't fuck with my yoga mats. I'm going to namaste your ass.
Dude, don't act like you're a pro. You're still a yoga noob.
Right.
You don't even know.
Fire brand yoga.
Yeah. I do broga.
Oh, there you go.
For sure. So anyway, once you start walking down those paths, the line between an effective policy and then, like, for lack of a better word, fascism is so difficult. It's so difficult to walk that line, and it's easy to be an armchair politician or an armchair, I'm going to solve everything.
Yeah.
And be like, well, why don't they just shut them all down except for one store? It's like, okay, well, how do we do that without infringing on freedom,
Particularly in the US, because freedom and liberty means so much to us. I mean, if there's anything that we can all bake into our culture as Americans, whether it's southern states or northern states, it's freedom and liberty. And now, although normally freedom and liberty are great for, like, say 99 out of 100 different issues, this could be one of them where freedom is killing us. Like when you allow people to create detrimental problems to their entire community by giving them certain freedoms, and you allow poor judgment to reign over all of us, then finally this is a problem. This is like one area where, say, communist rule in China is actually going to have a leg up with saving its citizens. Normally, freedom and liberty is great, but in this particular situation, we're all as weak as our weakest link in the chain, and whoever we allow to do whatever they're going to do, whatever organizations we decide to privilege and give them this type of ability, it's going to affect the rest of us. And so this is a very unusual, and talk about an idea that's in its infancy in the USA. How do we tiptoe this line of making smart, safe decisions for everyone and still preserve freedom for everyone? It's very difficult. And like Phil said, we need to be more forgiving or give more slack to these people to catch up, because this is a drastic overhaul from like our normal set of thinking that we would have.
There's efficacy in communism. That's kind of the takeaway. Having that level of control over your people will keep them safe eventually from themselves. We're like the animals running the zoo over here, and with some drunk zookeeper walking around with a stick trying to control us, and it's leading to a lot of the problems. Just to kind of bolster your point, it's leading to a lot of the problems that we're seeing today. It's quite shocking, but we will come through this. Everything's going to be all right.
Absolutely. talking about this makes me think of the slogan or whatever, I forgot what you would call this, but live free or die. Obviously that's something that I, definitely live by, and something when I hear that, it gives me American pride. But when you actually think about those words, that is so applicable to what we're going through right now. Live free or die. And I don't know, is it a choice? Does that apply to where we are now? Is it a choice between live free or die? Is that applicable right now? Or do you kind of have to throw things like that out of the window when you're in a crisis?
Sounds like an article I read on freedomeagle.gun.
Yeah. Well, right now it's live free and die in certain situations, like they're not binary. They're not exclusive from each other. So, yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of like, I think our problem right now is it's trying to change that live free or die. We're trying to change that or into just having like a line between them and blurring them a little bit, like trying to make it so you don't choose, because that's kind of what the issue is right now. Especially, we'll talk a little bit more about kind of more conservative political views in a little bit here, but from people who are a little bit more conservative, the second you try and make moves like, okay, well, let's shut this down, shut that down, we're going to have a state lockdown, all of a sudden it becomes a conversation about freedom and infringing on freedom. And it's like they're choosing. They're like, well, in that conversation, freedom is more important. I'd rather die free than die under anyone's rule or having them tell me what to do. And
that's the real problem. It's marrying ourselves to these ideologies that seem to be like good in one hand, but as soon as you find an anomaly where it's no longer a good thing, there's still that stubbornness. People have grounded and rooted themselves into this idea, and they don't want to reconsider often. It's very natural to not want to reconsider something you feel very strong about. So that's what's making this in particular very difficult for people to adapt to, particularly seemingly those on the right,
Well, haven't we seen a classic example of this over the years in the United States with the gun rights, right?
Mm-hmm.
The NRA was an amazing program that was brought around to group people with guns together and teach gun safety and hunting liabilities and laws and things that keep people with guns safe out in the market. But it's evolved into something else, and it's that right to have the gun, and it's that right to possess the gun and use the gun in the way that we want, which I believe in. Don't get me wrong, gun nuts, please don't. But the point that I'm making is it's a microcosm of what we're talking about now. It's the freedom to have this gun, but what is the payoff, or what's the downside of having these guns in the proliferation that we see today? I don't need to recount all the horrible things that we've seen because of the lack of regulation of guns over the years.
Yeah, and you need to be able to look into that objectively. You need to be able to always reconsider, and that's just the major problem. People are, guns are good, guns are my right, and so for a large portion of them, it doesn't matter what happens. It doesn't matter how little the legislation is that you're trying to improve some safety with a background check. They look at it as the macro picture. If we give an inch here, then the whole thing blows up and goes away. And so
how often
they're fighting irrationally.
Argument, slippery slope.
Yeah, and for the record, I just want to throw it out to the slippery slope apologists. You can do this with anything. You can apply a slippery slope to literally any argument whatsoever. So you need to always be rational and understand what's happening with your rules, what might happen with some changes to those rules, and weigh those two realities objectively against each other. And then let reason really kind of like guide you there, rather than just stubborn ignorance on the issue,
Yeah. And I'll couch this conversation with the fact that I think at least two of us own guns here. And I don't want to give up my guns, right? I'm not giving up my guns. And you come try to take one, which they're not going to do, by the way. And you might have a problem. I'm not going to shoot you.
Not your gun.
I'm knock your fucking
don't want yours. Let's just, because I know, like, there's been a couple things that people have said here that I feel like are kind of like that Bernie Sanders comment when he was like, oh, well, what they did in Cuba with giving everyone literacy was actually a good thing. And then everyone's like, oh, he supports socialism.
Right.
Let's do a thing here right quick. Raise your hand if you think that democracy is a better system overall than straight communism. Thank you. Okay, I knew that was going to happen. It was a rhetorical question.
Right.
Just for our viewers, all three of us love democracy. All three of us love the right to choose. We love the right to vote. We love freedom. You know, we have, like he said, we have guns. We do all the freedoms that everyone else enjoys. However, we also are of the mindset that things can change. It's always evolving. And I think the best way to kind of phrase this metaphorically would be like, we are all at the precipice of a volcano. And whatever the situation is, whether it's COVID, whether it's gun control, any issue, that is the volcano itself. And so let's just take gun control. The volcano is erupting. If we stay at the top of the volcano, we will die. You know, maybe not us, but someone else around us. So we will die. In order for us to escape this volcano, we need to head down the volcano. But at the bottom of that is the ocean. It's a very deep ocean and it's very stormy. If we continue off the cliff at the bottom, we fall into the ocean and we will also die. How do we escape the situation? People look down, they see the edge of the volcano, they look over here, they see the volcano erupting, and they're like, if we head down the edge here, that's a slippery slope. We might fall in the water and die at the bottom. Well, yes, you're correct. It is a slippery slope. But your alternative is to stand here and get covered by red hot magma, covering your entire body. So, how do you get down the slippery slope? I don't think just because it's a slippery slope that it makes it impossible to traverse. We are humans, we're adaptable, we have tools, we have critical thinking, we can change our minds. And so we are able to head down a slippery slope as humans by using tools, by preparing, maybe by attaching a safety rope up to the top in case we slip and fall. So we can head down the slope without falling into the ocean. And I think that is, whenever people say slippery slope, it's like, well, once you step on a slippery slope, it's impossible to stop and you're just going to keep sliding. We would never do anything if that was the case.
No, and really they're just punting the issue. You know, they just don't really want to analyze. Most of the people that would make that argument aren't really interested in hearing the good suggestions. You know, they might have heard like a crazy idea come out about gun regulation. And let's say it was a crazy, stupid left idea that wasn't going to work. It didn't have good merits. And then now they're shut down to every other new idea that comes across the desk, you know? Like, I almost like with your volcano thing, I almost look at it as more like we've got a bunch of people at the top of the volcano looking down at the ocean going, we can't go into that ocean no matter what. And then the people down at the bottom of the volcano looking up at the top, we can't go up there, it's on fire. And the two are just like shouting at each other and no one's like making any headway. That's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah. You know, the weird thing about putting it that way though is if the volcano was erupting, the people who were down standing towards the edge by the ocean looking up, everyone at top would get covered by red hot magma. And then the people down at the bottom, they'd be like, well, they all died.
I'd rather be in the water than in the magma. I don't know if we
You're at the bottom doesn't mean you're going to dive in the water, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's obviously a very complex issue, and it's something I've tried to remind myself about is you can be heated and you can even express an opinion one way or another, but don't just write off the politicians. Don't just write off someone with an opposing viewpoint, because these issues are so complex and there's so much to kind of go through. So we kind of were talking about guns there, and you know, this really isn't about gun control, but I know that a lot of gun stores are still open and are still selling, and there's a lot of bubbling up on kind of in more of the conservative media outlets that, you know, they're going to try and shut down gun stores and blah, blah, blah. So we'll run through a list of some things and just try and figure out if we collectively think that they're essential or not. What do you guys think about gun stores right now? Do you think that gun stores should be open? Or do you think a gun store should be closed? Do you think they should be forced to change how they do business?
Nobody wants to answer that one.
No.
Yeah.
It's a political landmine. Trick question, bitch.
Yeah. I worry, and this goes into alcohol too a little bit, although there is some more direct health concerns with addicts who can't get alcohol. You know, it could actually set some medical problems off. But I worry that the predictable reaction of people when you shut down gun stores would create a harm that would be worse than letting people go in there. And and I don't know what side, you know, the reality falls on there, but I know how strongly people feel about their guns and their, you know, their rights and everything. And so I would be very hesitant to do that. Yeah, I'm assuming a lot of people will look at this as like they need personal protection in case shit really goes bad. And it could create I wouldn't be surprised if it created a massive hysteria along with an anger fueled reaction if you're to shut people out from guns, even though I think the actual need for them to have their gun might not be as essential as the negative consequence of not letting them get one, you know?
Yeah, I believe that if that happens, that will be flicking the proverbial beehive. But the hives are filled with camo wearing militia motherfuckers that are strapped to the teeth, right? I mean, I own a gun, but I own one gun. I own a box of shells, and that's probably all I'm going to need. I can't imagine I'm going to need much more than that. If shit hits the fan and I go through all my shells, well, guess what? It's my time, you know. Plus, I have all the weed and beer, so I've got to protect that. The thing is that it's once again that slippery slope scenario that you just described, where just the mere thought of closing gun stores and stemming the flow of these people that have this desire to rack and stack as much metal as possible, will flick that beehive. And I think it'll be a negative reaction. I think we leave them open. I think we run limited hours or limit the fact that you can't buy an AK-47. You can't buy a semi-auto. You can't buy a full auto. You buy what you need based on the gun that you have. Maybe it's just ammo. I don't know. There has to be a delineation between just shutting them down and then having some sort of a limited access.
Yeah, I kind of agree on that. I think it's really interesting that both of you guys are on the keep it open camp, not because of the essentiality of guns, but because of the political and social fallout of closing those stores. And that's just an example of, you know, putting ourselves into the seat of the politician there, where it's so freaking difficult. I'm sure there's a lot of people way more liberal than us that are just enraged that gun stores are still open. And this is one aspect they're leaving out of it. And I think if you're one of those people who's enraged and you're like, well, I don't care if people are going to get upset that their gun stores are closed. This is about public health. I think you're missing a big part of the reality of the situation. It does no one good if they shut down gun stores. And then not only do we have already a problem with coronavirus in America, we also have a borderline revolution on our hands or something crazy going on. So Phil, I for the record here, I fall into your camp where I'm like, absolutely, I think people should still be able to get a gun. However, I would like to see regulations. I think everyone needs to step up right now. And some businesses might be like, oh, this is too difficult. We're not equipped to do this. I don't give a fuck. If you want to stay open, you need to adapt. So the first thing I would like is when someone, let's say the store is closed for people walking in, you have to be by appointment only. When you call the store and you say, hey, I would like to buy a new gun, the first question is, okay, do you currently own a gun? If you say yes, you do not get another gun. You already own a gun. There is no reason for you to have another one. Yes, I agree. You should be able to have multiple people in your house with guns, for sure. But under these situations, when we're closing gun stores, if you already have one in your house, I think that your right to bear arms is properly satisfied. And past that point, I would just say that right now we all need to kind of bear down. And I feel confident that unless a small army attacked my house, I would be able to defend myself properly with my shotgun. So I think that would be the first thing. The second thing I would like to see is online sales or delivery. There are so many people out of work right now. like myself, or they worked in an industry that wasn't deemed as essential, and they're looking for stuff to do. So let's say you're a mom and pop gun shop, and you're the only person who works there, and the state's like, okay, you can still sell guns, but you have to be by appointment only. You have to do this interview process. If they qualify for all that, yes, you can sell them a gun, but you need to, maybe they could just drive to the store and pick it up outside, or you have to deliver. And then if they're like, well, we don't have someone to deliver for us, the government could be like, well, good for you. We're now plugged into our unemployment database. And all of these people are people who have said that they would be willing to do some side work right now. So we can get you a delivery driver to your job to help work with you. Maybe the state will subsidize, or the federal will subsidize the cost of paying that employee, and then change the way you do business. I agree that politically saying that no one can have guns right now is a bad move. I don't think that having a gun right now is necessary, essential, because I don't really think that the government is going to, I just don't think that people are going to start attacking and you're going to need your gun right now. But I do think that
right now. You said right now.
Yeah.
Right? Which kind of leaves this proverbial door open that we all know is there.
Absolutely.
And no one wants to talk about it. But we all know it's there. Why do I sound like some right-wing wacko right now? So listen, we all know it's there. It's going to happen. But that's the reality. And that's the reason we're even having this conversation now. And why we're tiptoeing and dancing around it is because the reality is that there are people that are racked and stacked with so much fucking metal out there that they alone could have a war with their neighbor and take out the whole fucking neighborhood. So there's this level of caution that we have, and it's there's been a theme through this conversation that's evident, that we're afraid of what could happen, and the reality that it could happen is there, and we're slowly inching towards that reality. I mean, I don't think in the history of time have we ever been on the precipice of that. And when I say precipice, I don't mean it's going to happen tomorrow. But if things get worse, and here's the doomsday, right? If things get worse and this virus proceeds and doesn't peak, it just stretches for a few years, God forsake, and we get to that point, we're going to wish they didn't close those stores.
That's for sure, man. And again, that's why I think that they ultimately should remain open. I agree. I did drop that don't need it yet in there for sure. And I think that's what sparked all this gun panic buying. It's like, well, I have one gun, so I don't need two yet, you know?
Well, too, I just want to say, what do you think? What do you honestly think would happen if there became this sweeping new movement? Let's say half the states start banning firearm sales. Like, let's be real about what would probably. Phil talked about the bee's nest, and like, what do you think would actually happen? Because I actually have very grim picture that I'm imagining when I think of millions of proud gun owners being told that they can't go in and get a gun. To them, that's going to set off this reaction of like martial law coming down, and here we go. This is what we've all been waiting for, and it's going to create so much hysteria and problems in the streets and panic. And like, I think that we need to be very respectful to predictable outcomes for what we do here. It's not about what we ought to do or what ought not to do. It's what will likely happen. And we really need to be as pragmatic as possible when we decide these policies moving forward, because I do not see that going over well at all if they try to say stuff like that. Like, and as a matter of fact, if I clicked on the browser right now and saw that states were starting to do this, I'm not even I don't care a whole lot about gun rights. I don't look into it a whole lot. I let other people fight that battle. I would immediately become worried about what's going to start happening in my own community if I read that. I'm going to get panicked just wondering what other people are going to do. So
would you be sparked to go get a gun?
Honestly, yeah, it would probably be like the most motivating factor I would have to go like, well, time to stock up. I don't know who's going to be, like running out there all crazy now. So
when's the time? When's the time? You know, at what point do you make that decision? At what point do you become fearful enough of the reality, the potential reality of this? You know, what would be your triggering point, Ryan, to say, okay, now it's time? What are you looking for? What social cues are you looking to pick up on before you say, oh shit, okay, all right, I've got to go be Tiger, whatever the fuck that dude's name is,
Tiger King,
and walk around
Joe
strapped,
Exotic.
right? The Tiger King, right?
Yeah.
I'm like Tiger Woods.
No.
Who's that Tiger guy?
The Tiger King. So
Yeah, no, I mean, honestly, just reading that headline, the potential headline alone would be enough to get me to start thinking about it seriously. And then as soon as I start hearing some random pop, 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 you know, gunshots down the street, or if I start associating local crime stories, I'd be like, this is because of the guns thing. You know, like it would probably just, everything that I see negative in my community would pile on itself and add to that need for me to feel like, okay, well, now I need to take a different measure of security for my house. So,
and then at that point, is it too late?
It could be
too late, because, you know, here you are. Now you're going to stand in a line outside of a store, you know, subject to getting shot in your war-torn neighborhood.
So this is getting really gunny right now. Which
yeah, right.
I'm talking about. I'm fine with that. We'll move on to another essential. But Phil, I have one question here. As you're giving Ryan those kind of questions to think about, do you think that you fall into the category where you believe that people should, like, it's kind of like a personal responsibility to already own a gun? Do you think that people, not that you have to have a gun in your house, but do you think that it is a responsible move to have a gun in your house?
I think so. And that's without hesitation. And it's not because of the environment that we're in now or the direction we potentially could be going. I travel, and a lot of times my wife is here alone. And so based on that, that's really the only reason we have a gun in the house now is, you know, she knows how to use that motherfucking gun, you know, almost better than I do. And so I don't fear her fumbling for it and not being able to utilize it to protect herself. Man, she'll pick it up and blow a motherfucker's head off if he doesn't belong in this goddamn house. And that brings me solace to some extent, because I travel a lot, and I think it shouldn't come down to any sort of a blanket policy where, you know, everyone should have a gun for protective reasons. I think it's an individual decision based on your own personal situation. I travel, you know, I don't, when I'm home, I don't go, hey, let's go shoot the gun. Hey, you know, it's just not my thing. Although we've done it, but it was once or twice. And have I been knocking down your door to go again? No. Am I going to? Maybe now, because I should probably be a little more proficient. So it's going to spur me to do that. But I think it's a good idea. How about that? I think it's a damn good idea to have a gun in your house right now.
It's kind of like the Boy Scouts motto, and I'm definitely a Boy Scout. I made it all the way to Life Scout towards the end. Almost got Eagle Scout. But I think be prepared. It's something that I live by, you know, and I don't think I'm being prepared for an apocalypse. I don't think I'm being prepared for a government takeover, but I do think that I'm being prepared in the case that I would need a weapon, you know, like who knows what you're going to need it for. And the odds probably are you will never need it. But when you do need it, I think if you're one of those people who's like, oh shit, I should have gotten a gun before they closed all those stores, you done fucked up, right?
Yeah, now it's too late. It's too late. And it's too late.
All right, so let's get away from the guns. I'm so amazed at how long we spent on just guns there, and we didn't even plan on talking about that.
Right.
It shows you how infatuated with that conversation we are in this country. So the other thing, and we did touch on this, is alcohol. Obviously, food, beverage should be covered by these essential what are they called? Be allowed to be open. I forgot what the exceptions, essential exceptions.
Exemptions, yeah.
But you know, when I hear the Michigan law says basically must be a business that is essential to sustaining human life. Obviously, a loaf of bread, some water, those types of things are essential to sustaining human life. Is a fifth of whiskey or a 6-pack of PBR in that same category? Is it fair to lump it together there?
This is liquid bread.
So
All wheat, baby.
we'll jump into that conversation. Do you just snap judgments before we kind of get into the nitty gritty? Where are you guys at? Are you like, oh, of course, stay open. Of course, they should be closed. Undecided.
Before I even deep dive, again, this is just the pragmatic approach of what will happen then if we say you can't buy alcohol. I'm picturing anarchy. Like I'm picturing the prohibition, but maybe even worse right now. And then I dive a little deeper, and I think it can also be, some people are going to use it recklessly, and they're actually going to have worse behavior from it. Some, wild guy who's down in a fifth, he might do something horrible. That's not good. But there are other people who probably find it very soothing for their anxiety to get through a really tough time. It could be mental therapy to millions of people in our country as well. So when I combine that with what I would expect to happen if they try to prohibit it, to me, it's kind of an easy, okay, leave it open.
Phil, you're out of work right now because of the effects of this on alcohol.
No, I'm still working. I'm still getting paid. I'm working from home. The element of going out on the road and selling and interacting with customers has been removed, of course, but I am working from home. And so, I'm biased, right? Yes, it's essential. But that's only because, it's paying my bills. But the reason I feel it is essential is probably something that not a lot of people talk about, and maybe they have, and I'm not listening. But it's the fact that these people, I interact with a lot of people that own or manage party stores, liquor stores, and a lot of times I'll show up at 9 or 10 in the morning before they're really open, or just as they're opening, so that things are slower. But still, I see people lined up or standing out in front of that store waiting for that door to open because they don't want this. They need this. And if they don't have this, they're going to the motherfucking hospital. And do you think these hospitals right now can afford to have the extra onslaught of people that are banging the doors down with DTs? No, they're not. We're not worried about banana bags right now. We're worried about ventilators, masks, the concerned about the people that are on the front lines fighting this virus. And they don't need people shaking with DTs, which is a horrible way to live. It's painful. It's I don't know. That's what Leaf tells me. Yeah. But it's a horrible thing to go through, and it's going to add to the to the weight of a system that's already stressed. So I think that's a big reason that it should be essential. I mean, how horrible is that I even have to say that that this market has to stay open because of this situation that we've created.
It's a great point.
It absolutely is. And before we started this conversation today, I put a call out on Facebook. Hey, this is what we're going to talk about today. What do you guys think about? Should alcohol stores be open and stuff like that? And the first thing somebody said is, well, I think they're still open for people who are having DTs. And that's, severe withdrawal symptoms. And that's a very real thing. And so that kind of got me thinking, and I was interested to kind of know, okay, well, how severe is that? For instance, like, let's say they did close it and we had people dying of these detox syndromes. Would the amount of deaths per capita, would the death rate, the mortality rate be worse than of the people who are gonna, if they go out and get people sick? Where is that thing? So I did a little looking around here, and I was able to find this article, and obviously do your own digging, but this is where I looked. A US Today article that says roughly of patients who are admitted to the hospital who are having a DT, around 6.6 of those patients die from being a severe alcoholic who needs alcohol and then cold turkey going off of alcohol. So effectively, I think it's, one could at least have an argument for the fact that coronavirus right now is somewhere in between 1 and 3% possibly of a mortality rate, whereas detox syndromes coming off cold turkey is going to have a 6%. So,
I think that data is skewed because I noticed it went from 1987 to 2003. And this is way before seltzers. A big difference, right? Because there's so many people that are addicted to those seltzers like crack right now. But I digress. Back to yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to get numbers on this kind of stuff. So a lot of times, especially when someone's trying to find a credible study, you'll notice them going back to a study that wasn't done in like 2018 or 19, because sometimes it really is that long in between another credible study coming out that has the right kind of controls, has enough of a sample size, because you don't want to just sample the most recent one because sometimes it's a shit study. So that might be why they have the later data here. Another thing to look at would be like 2016, they had 831 deaths from this, people who were cold turkey coming off of alcohol and then they died. That's already lower than the amount of coronavirus deaths in the United States. Am I right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So if you look just at that number, then it's like, okay, well, then we should just close them because obviously it's only going to be 861 people. But what that line of thinking doesn't take into account is that those are just people who, for whatever reason, stopped drinking cold turkey of their own accord, or they were in maybe in a housing facility or court mandated or something like that. Whereas if they closed down alcohol stores, there's a whole lot of people who never would have gone cold turkey that would have to go cold turkey.
Yeah.
So that number would be way higher. And this is one thing.
And that's just deaths. That was just tracking deaths. Okay. So if it was 861 in that year span, that was just deaths. Okay. Let's talk about the people that didn't die, that still needed treatment.
Yeah.
That was going to be an exponential number compared to the 861.
Well, exactly. And that's
the number they're looking at to make these judgments.
Yeah, back to that 6% number, that 6% mortality rate, and I'm completely just parsing this down and generalizing so much, but that 6% was only 6.6% of people who were admitted to the hospital. Yeah. So think of all the other people who maybe didn't go to the hospital, then died, or who just didn't go to the hospital and got super freaking sick, And the other thing right now, especially to consider, is just the stress on the hospital. People who are, oh shit, I can't drink now. Now I have to go to the hospital. Hospital's already freaking full. They're full of COVID patients. So any stress that you put on that medical system in an indirect way can cause more coronavirus and COVID deaths because they're stretched thinner. There's more people trying to get in there. It also probably contributes to the spread of it because there's more people either in this waiting area or, it just, so for me on this,
how many people will lose their minds when they find out they can't get it too? And what types of behaviors will that induce that you're not going to find in a study or anything like that too,
Yeah. I think a couple states did try to stop alcohol sales without fact checking or looking up an article. I think Colorado, or at least the city of Denver, was one of these places that came out and said there was going to be no more alcohol sales. And then before 24 hours went by, they already reversed their policy on that. And they said mostly because of the panic buying. They didn't really mention detox syndromes as too much of a problem. And, just to play devil's advocate, I'm assuming politicians or people who aren't really too worried about that, or who would still like to see these things closed despite all the ill effects on those people, they might think, oh, well, we'll open up more facilities and we'll offer more programs and detox centers to help these people. But, Pennsylvania actually, last I checked, still has a ban on alcohol right now. And they're having to change what they're doing This is one of the most accurate and recent articles I could find. This is from Pennsylvania Live, Patriot News. I usually try and find outlets that are from the state. But so here they're actually trying to go straight online, where they're closing down the stores. They don't want people in the stores, but they are still able to do alcohol sales if it's online. And at that point, you can either pick it up from the store or deliver. What happened in Pennsylvania is, just like every government website right now, their shit crashed. And so they couldn't handle it at all. The amount of people jumping on to order alcohol. But even then, they had like all these limits on how much you could buy. I think it was like 6 units per day, because obviously there's going to be some people who are just like stockpiling with anything. So do you guys think here in Michigan we should have looked into an online thing like this? Do you think that's unfair to people who might not have computers and internet at home?
Yeah, I don't know. Like I don't have a clear picture. I don't have a strong stance on this, but I'm definitely leaning towards leaving it open. You know, the more and more businesses that maybe offer that as a new tool to try to improve safety with buying these things, that would be good. But I definitely would really be concerned about some sweeping mandate, you know, that takes over all stores in the state. So I don't know, like any way we can inch towards a safer exchange of product and consumer, that's a good thing. I'm all about it. But I definitely don't think they should force everyone into that, at least not yet. I mean, I almost feel like we should just keep continuing to do this and be smart and make incremental changes until we've realized we've hit the threshold. You know, the situations that we've already talked about become so much worse. And then at that point, we're looking at like a complete federal 14-day shutdown. That would change things. It's like, okay, people, we're going to give you time to go get your stuff and stockpile, you know, but because we are shutting down for 2 weeks, no one's going anywhere. It might come to that, and that would be a little bit of a different circumstance. But until we officially get there, I think I don't like the idea of restricting sales to people. I see so many bad things that could come with that I have a hard time believing doing it would clearly create a better good for this situation.
And just to clarify, do you feel this way even if they had like a website that wasn't going to crash where you could order online? Do you think even that would kind of is a little?
Yeah, because there's so many people that are not tech literate yet with being able to do stuff like that. Just the other day, we went and got Little Caesars. We saw a preview on the TV that mentioned how once it comes out of the oven, no one touches the pizza, you know? And then you've got Drive Up, so you don't have to go into a store where people were gathered tightly, you know? And we used an app to get that. And that was the first time that I had ever heard of that or actually tried to use their app. And I'm a fairly younger guy. Like I can imagine like 50, 60, 70-year-olds that are trying to now become acclimated to online systems. I would worry that it would still create a big disruption.
Oh, those 50-year-olds, doddering old fucks, walking around, bumping into shit and trying to use their jitterbugs to get by.
They mean well.
For our viewers, just so you guys know, you know, he looks very youthful. Phil is indeed over 50, so.
Hey, motherfuckers, I moisturize.
It shows.
Yeah,
You know, my main concern, and yeah, I would feel bad for those people, but you know, we have a very close friend, Ryan, who has been on the front lines working at a liquor store all through this. Every day, he's telling me another story of how this customer came in and coughed on him, you know, and unfortunately at his store, they are really not able to put in a lot of precautions. It's a small location. Standing 6 feet away when you're handing someone your debit card is pretty difficult. So, you know, he's been telling us a lot of reports from the front line, and my concern isn't necessarily the people who don't know how to use the internet, because that's just kind of ignorance. And I think you're able to get your grandkid to help you order it online. Get someone else to order it online for you to your house. I think the people I would really worry about is people who are coming into the liquor store and buying their needed alcohol with change, or their, you know, there was this kind of big thing going on with bottle deposits. And in Michigan right now, the Beer and Wine Wholesalers Association about a week ago put out a press release saying that they recommend for retailers and locations to stop taking bottle returns. And that's because of the fact that it touches someone's mouth, it touches their hands, they don't get sterilized, they're thrown in a bag. So I know Meijer, I was just down at a Tom's Market the other day. They've now stopped taking bottle returns, but our buddy at the liquor store is still having to take those returns, you know?
Does he really?
Yep, they're actually taking those returns and they're just holding on to them.
Wow.
And I don't know if the distributor in Michigan, the way we're set up, his liquor store would get these returns and then they would contact the distributor for those returns, and that distributor would pick up those returns, and then I believe a check is cut at that point.
Okay.
I work in the industry, and we received letters from a lot of our distributorships stating how they're going to be handling things from here on out. While we're still making beer, they're still picking it up and delivering it. Our draft sales are almost nil, and that's what you get at a party store, that's what you get at a bar or a restaurant. And then package, which is cans or bottles, are through the roof right now.
Mm-hmm.
But how they're operating now, and the relationship that we have in this 3-tiered system here in the state, where we've got a producer, distributor, and buyer, is that they buy our beer and they warehouse it, and they help us advertise it, they help us market it. There's a whole multi-pronged approach at getting the liquid to the market. But right now they're stripped down. They're running on skeleton crews. They're not doing any marketing or advertising for us. They're not making tabletop tents to put on bar tables because they're not open. So just based on the need, they've altered and shifted. And one of the things that they put out is, and you just described it, Leif, is they're telling their premises, the people that sell to the party stores and retail locations, not to take these returnables for that reason.
Are they saying
everyone is bobbing and weaving?
Are the distributors saying that they won't pick up these returnables, or they're just saying we recommend that you guys stop taking them?
Yeah, it was to stem the flow, because it's forcing them, because if they keep taking them, these premises, the party stores or stores, don't have room to store them all. And so it's forcing the distributors to pick up even more, and it's creating a backlog. It's a backlog that they don't need right now. You know, and it's music to my ears, being a vendor to the market, to the distributors, is I don't want them to worry about anything other than just getting our beer on shelves and not have to worry. I don't want the driver to worry about having to pick up bags and bags of infected cans and bottles. I want them to worry about getting our fucking beer on the shelves, and they're doing that. So I applaud the distributors for taking the steps that they're doing to minimize and streamline this effort.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think, going back to my buddy, when he told me that, he's like, oh yeah, a lot of places are going to stop taking can returns. We still have to take them. I'm like, okay, well, what are you going to do with them? Just like hold on to them and then return them when you can? He's like, yup. I'm like, dude, wow. What the fuck? It's just crazy. And every business can make their own decisions. And under the law in Michigan right now, they have the freedom to make those decisions themselves. But this is one of those instances, again, where I'm like, if you're going to be open, if you're going to claim yourself as an essential business, it is your responsibility to make sure that you are doing everything that you can to minimize the effect of you having to be open. Because if you're essential, you have to be open. That's what you're claiming. So if you have to be open during this crisis and you know that you could be a danger, you got to do everything you can to minimize that. And so in that situation, I know that we've had a lot of friction with our one buddy. We're always busting his balls to try and push his boss harder. Just because it is like, you got to do more, They have some sanitizer there and they're spraying stuff down. But I'm like, well, why don't you tell people to wait in the parking lot and then tell you what they want and you'll bring it out? But
Yeah,
it's
they've
hard.
tried to offer some type of curbside, delivery services like that. So they have made little adjustments like that. But like our friend was mentioning, like people are still going in there to buy candy bars. You know what I mean? So they're just smuggling in all the other stuff too, and on the premise that this is essential. So they could, shut down everything but liquor or tobacco or like food, drink items, so do you take Swiss cake rolls off the shelf? What's food at this point?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Are you telling me that Reese's peanut butter cups aren't motherfucking essential?
those obviously are.
Please.
But they're food. They're food. I need food to survive. And if you're going to put them in the category, it goes into the food category. Or maybe since it's not on the food pyramid, it doesn't count, right? If it's not in one of those 5.
That food pyramid's trash now anyways, I think.
Yeah,
But
it's an antiquated system, yeah.
objectively speaking, Reese cups are essential. I think we all understand that.
Good.
They are my favorite candy. But I mean, and you're kind of referencing back to what Vermont is demanding of Meijer and those big box stores. They're like, okay, we get it. You're essential. You sell food, you sell pharmaceuticals, things that people need right now and things that people need to stay alive. But you're not going to be selling video games. You're not going to be selling Phil's yoga mat. And it's a way of just minimizing, So I would like to personally see a little bit more of that. I agree. Again, we all know that we all three think that the liquor stores should be able to sell alcohol. People need it, but people coming in buying a candy bar, someone comes in and they sell nude porn there. So someone comes in and buys a nudie magazine. It's like, fuck that. Stay at home. Why are you here right now, asshole?
Right.
Buys magazines anyways.
I know.
Yeah, exactly. Nowadays, that's how you know that you need to look at your life and re-examine what's going on, because you're still buying paper porn.
Yeah, especially now. You know why? And this is the big news. This is what really should be shocking everybody. RedTube Premium is free right now.
Oh my God.
Absolutely free. So hop on, take matters into your own hands and deal with it.
Take matters into your own hands.
I saw this thing the other day that was pretty hilarious. Is like Pornhub giving everybody free premium made everybody realize how worthless it is to pay for a premium subscription.
That's great.
Because this is just like the other version. Why would I ever do this? The last thing I'd like to say about alcohol before we move on is that one of the other, and it's kind of tied to the addiction part of alcohol, one of the reasons our buddy and his employer has been so vociferous about keeping their business open, they're literally worried that if they were to shut down, that they would have people breaking into their store. Like he said several times, if we had to shut down, my boss already said he would probably need to sleep at the store with a shotgun. And that's just...
And back to guns.
Yeah, I know, exactly.
Yeah.
I know they're both already armed, so we are in northern Michigan.
Right.
So I feel like we could talk all day about what is essential here. One real thing I just want to hit as a last essential before we move on. All three of us are proponents of medical marijuana, recreational marijuana. Do you think, snap judgment, quick statement, marijuana essential, yes or no?
Medical, yes.
I'm just going to say yes. Snap judgment, yes.
Yeah, across the board. It's a tough one for me. For the medical, yes, because I see so many people, especially when I was working in the medical industry, people who are taking 5+ different prescriptions a day, and then they're able to start using medical cannabis, and it allows them to stop all those prescriptions. So if you are calling prescription drugs, which I believe they are, essential, then I think medical cannabis has to be regulated. I am a huge recreational smoker. I love I love weed in general.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I still don't know if I think that recreational sales fall as essential, especially considering in our state, at least, I have the right and the freedom to grow plants myself or to find someone who does and get those plants. So
I want to say, like,
open.
I find it kind of weird though, because first of all, we don't have a foolproof system to determine what qualifies people for medicinal purposes. Like, we've got rules that we came up with, but it doesn't necessarily mean they're perfect. Last I checked in Michigan, if you felt that marijuana helped your anxiety or depression, that won't make you eligible for a medicinal card in the state. So there are a lot of people that might feel that way, like that it is medicine, but I'm not honored by my state's legislation, you know? And when we already have the store open to provide the medical services to people, and some people feel like maybe they fell through the cracks of the criteria of what counts as medical, but they can't get something that other people can. Like, to me, I'm just like, just make it across the board. You know, it could mean so much to so many people that that's something that I would err on the side of caution with eliminating from. Although we largely have, it is only medicinal, from what I understand, in the state right now that are allowed to still provide to people. So we have people paying other people to go on runs for them and bring back some of their medicine for their recreational use right now. I mean,
Yeah,
just allow it.
It's a strange time in the world of cannabis, especially here in the state, because you know we have dispensaries. We have had dispensaries for a few years now that are supplying the medical patients. But more recently, it got passed that you could buy recreational as well, and it caused for a boom in distributorships throughout the state. So now there's probably a dispensary near you right now that is selling both medical and recreational, but right now they're not selling recreational, and that's where it adds validity to the need for people that have anxiety, that have backaches, that have things that are justifiable reasons to consume this plant that was given to us by the earth, and utilized in a sensible and safe way. So I applaud the dispensaries that expanded and at their great cost, and having to jump through all the hoops as predicated by the law, by the state, and by stopping the recreational sales for now.
Nice. I hear you typing, Ryan. Are you looking something up over there?
No, I'm not.
Yeah, he's just
No.
He's got to get that free premium discount right now on RedTube.
Logging in his Pornhub right now. All right, well, let's switch gears here then a little bit. And I know one thing that I was looking forward to today was watching the press conference of Tony Spell, who is the pastor out of Louisiana, who has defied orders of his state to stop holding large congregations. His church is regularly known for having huge congregations, and since the coronavirus has taken over America, it's almost gotten more popular at his church, because he has come out and saying, we are not going to stop. People need God now. And then just yesterday or the day before, it got to the point where he was hit with a few misdemeanors from the state. Six misdemeanors, which is a pretty small, in the grand scheme of things. The article I looked at earlier said it's a $500 fine or up to 90 days in jail. So, you know, if you have a church that's that popular, $500 here and there probably isn't a big thing for you. But I was looking forward to this press conference because he was going to have Roy Moore, apparently, is his lawyer.
Forgot all about that, too.
I was disappointed, though, because the press conference was supposed to be today. Yesterday, I saw that it was going to be at 2 p.m. today. And then today, when I logged on to try and find video, they said it was at noon. And crazy enough, I could barely find anything about it whatsoever. And one of the reasons, the one article I did find, they actually said, we are not going to send anyone to that church because obviously they think it's crawling with COVID.
Oh.
So there was no one there to cover it because no one wants to endanger themselves.
That's hilarious.
We already spoke a lot about, religion and where, the church is in our last episode. But whether we like it or not, in America, there is a huge tie-in between conservative viewpoints and especially Christian religious ideology. It seems to me as though part of why America has had what is widely viewed to be one of the poorest responses of any of the large, like let's say the G20 or the G7 nations, is because of the political divide in our country. And what should be a public health issue is now a political issue. Do you guys have that same sense about this?
Absolutely. And I know that there are people on both sides of the political sphere that are making some similar cases, but clearly seems to be primarily coming from the right side with opposition to shutdowns largely. And a lot of them are citing reasons for the economy, the things that the problems we're dealing with by shutting everything down. A lot of them tend to believe that that's worse than letting everything open and let the virus run its course and stuff like that. Like Glenn Beck was a prime example of saying the other day, what did he say? Even if we all get sick, I'd rather die than kill the country. And his whole narrative is that elder people are more than willing to continue to go out to work and keep the economy running so that our children and our grandchildren will inherit a good economy. And that's more important than, you know, the flip side of things. And I feel like what a lot of these conservative, and there are many other conservative voices like him, largely conservative right now instead of Democratic. And I feel like the major thing that they're missing in this is they're kind of looking at the economy picture is really bad right now. The scope is really bad. We don't know what's going to happen. So we should just keep running anew. The fatality rate's not that high. We'll get sick. The people will survive and they'll inherit a good and strong economy. But I feel like not one of them is taking the time to think about what would actually happen if we did that, and how overrun the healthcare system would be at that point. And the types of, when you got people like dying outside of the doors of hospitals, and the types of mental anguish that would put in citizens and the new consequences that would come of that, you would still have an absolute destroyed, tanking economy for all sorts of different reasons. And you would have massive body count in addition to that. And so it's definitely coming largely from the right. And I feel like there's some major cognitive dissonance going on there where they're just not even really brainstorming what their proposal would actually do to the country. They would have the worst of both worlds, I guess I'm arguing, when they're only thinking of like the one harm of the economy.
Yeah.
Well, they're living in the now and basing their decisions on what their Bible tells them to do. And this is where the impetus for this situation comes from. It's a belief that they are protected by their God, and they, and, you know, I'm upsetting a lot of people that are hearing this right now, but I think they need to hear it. Is they feel as if they're protected by their prayer and their God, and the ability to withstand this virus is inherent within them, and that's where this comes from. I think anyone that has any basic knowledge about how this virus attacks a system would argue that isn't true. But it's like arguing with somebody who is so dug in on their belief that this is evident and true in their own reality, that it's almost a waste of time. Now, I've made these arguments before against religion, and it's normally just a moot point. But the scary thing about this is that they're spreading it. They're exposing themselves, and it's exponentially going out into the masses, and that's where I have a problem. And that's where we all should have a problem, is their faith and their belief that they'll be protected by this is not only hurting themselves, but it's hurting everybody.
Yeah, that's been the most frustrating thing to me. Isn't like, oh my gosh, you guys think this way, and so that's very effrontery and it offends me. What gets me is that we have seen it from the top. We've seen it from the president. We've seen it from Florida. You know, the governor of Florida was very resistant to this. And then just yesterday, oh gosh, now we're going to lock down. We saw this even over in the UK, where Boris Johnson came out and was more for a policy of less restrictions on the public and more preparation on the healthcare side in hopes of getting more of a herd immunity response. And then a week later, after realizing that things were getting really bad, then it's politically dangerous enough for them to all of a sudden decide to put in some restrictions. And that's what's the most disturbing part about this disconnect for me, is that while these people are catching up to the reality, because they just need, it's not that they won't believe, they just need a more preponderance of evidence in order to be able to switch their viewpoint. So while we're waiting for them to catch up, all these people are getting sick, all these people are spreading it. And then when they finally catch on and decide, the damage has been done. It doesn't matter if you change your viewpoint at that point.
It's too late. Yeah.
Amen.
And it's just incredibly infuriating. And you see it over and over. Even the most staunchest of conservatives, you know, I don't think he's really legitimately a conservative in his heart. But, you know, Trump, who's like the bastion of what people would call the far right in America right now, even he's coming out now and saying, oh, this is gonna be horrible. Oh, we're gonna have possibly between 100,000 and 240,000 deaths, like completely changing his tone. But it just infuriates me, because it's like the only reason you're doing that is because the reality of the situation was strong enough finally to jump on that political scale and then sway the political scale.
It was just 1 week ago, Trump had tweeted, the cure cannot be worse, all capital letters, by far, than the problem. You know, so like just a week ago, he was talking about how, suggesting back to like his Easter timeline, that we should still be open, you know, and everything, because the economy tanking is worse than the body count that continues to pile up. And now, just like you said, he goes then a few days later to, we could see 100,000 deaths in the US, and that would be a great job by me. And then now it's even, well, we could see 100 and 240,000 deaths like 2 days later. You know, like it, I don't want to digress. I could, you know, attack so many different angles of
It's
Trump
moving
and
the goalposts.
the day-to-day briefing.
That's right.
Yeah, it's definitely, you know, we never want to come off like we're attacking. We're just speaking about our frustrations and our thoughts on the situation. But I really think if people were able to objectively pull themselves out of the situation, you know, you ask the most conservative person you know, you're like, do you want somebody to die? You know, like, does a human life matter to you? They're going to say yes. I don't care what your viewpoint is. You're going to say yes. And so even with my conservative friends and people who've been resistant to this, and people who in the beginning were saying it was a hoax, it's just really crazy for me to try and put myself into their headspace, because I know they don't want anyone to die. I know, even though Donald Trump, you know, just a little while ago was saying, I want the economy open by Easter, or, you know, just different things that we hear, you know, people saying that, oh, you know, old people would gladly sacrifice if it saved America and the economy. Even those people, I know that they deep down don't want anybody to die, but it's because of all this other political frosting that we put on the cake in America that just causes people to have this cognitive disconnect, you know?
He was trying to get it open by Easter, which is it's sort of strange, because it's a holiday that's based on a guy that was supposed to stay where he was at, but did.
Right. Yeah, exactly. He's social distance. Yeah. Like,
yeah.
It is bizarre. But anyway, we've luckily moved past that. Now we're going to April 30th, right?
Exactly. You know, I feel like it's getting more realistic now, and I do think that's important for anyone who's been frustrated by this to take into account that, yes, we didn't get to the tone of voice that we thought he should have the way we wanted. But that really doesn't matter. What matters is right now, the right things are happening. I've been really encouraged to hear governors from both parties being like, you know what, the way he's been working on these issues, maybe there's some here that I disagree with, but these issues, they've been very responsive to. And, If we need something, they're there. That's really heartening, you know, and that's where we should be. And I think that's the thing to try and focus on. We're all so stressed already that to add in this like political furor on top of it just makes it so much worse.
Yeah, I'm past the whole "not my president" thing, because he is our president, but he makes it so fucking hard.
No.
He just makes it so fucking hard, man. Just does. And you know there are people on the right that are saying the same thing, right? And let's all get behind him and support him, but he just doesn't make it easy.
Yeah.
Right. When he brags about his own status in some kind of way, he promotes himself in the middle of a conversation that might have been just recently talking about how many people passed away. In the next sentence, he's fluffing his own, status. People have to understand that whether you like the guy or not, that is going to be it's going to create an extremely toxic reaction for people that are listening, that are looking with urgency, empathy, compassion, fear. What do we do? And then he's up there. Did you see how I handled that? Did you see how I did this? Yeah. Again, maybe we shouldn't talk about Trump, because I'm just going to probably derail the whole conversation into a bunch of other stuff.
Whole other episode, brother.
Yeah. Right.
No, it's tough, I think, for people who are more left of center to try and not go there. It's a pretty easy thing, because no matter what you believe, when you have a certain input into your own mind, we all operate off our own perspective. When you are given a certain set of data and your own brain interprets it in a certain way, that's the way you think. That's the way you feel. And so it's very hard to tell yourself that possibly the way I think and the way I feel isn't the most important thing right now, or isn't to try and separate ourselves from that, because I found that really difficult. Last episode I was talking about how my political posts, the amount of them has gone through the roof. The tone of my posts has gotten more straightforward and more serious. But I don't know. And there's some part of me that almost feels like I need to, separate myself from that, to let that go. But to let that go almost feels like such a travesty to humanity, do you guys feel that same way? Is it,
I found that I've instituted upon myself on my media front, my social media front, a governor, right? That it keeps me from saying the things that I truly want to say, because I don't want to engage anymore. I really don't. If you notice, my stream of information that I'm putting out is normally humor based. I'm a lot like myself, my character you're seeing here. This is not a character. This is me, and this is the life I've decided to lead at this point. And it's neutered. Yeah, maybe. Is it honest and frank and based on humor and fun? Yeah, most definitely. Because I just feel that there's so much angst that's being portrayed and dumped into our social media feeds right now that I don't want to I don't want to contribute to it. And I bless everyone else for jumping in and being a part of that of that din that's always there. I understand it and I get it, and it entertains me to an extent, but it exaggerates me. Or no, I get aggravated. By it, and I don't want to spend my time on social media being aggravated by it. I want to pick up a positive vibe. So I'm trying to put out at this point what I want to get back from it, and it's about leaving that current mindset and embodying one of positivity and fun.
Bravo.
Yes, there we go. I want to try and be more like Phil. I really do.
I know.
No, but it's not for you though. It's not for you. It's for me. Leave it the fuck alone. This is my gig. But
am I cheating myself you know, like, so you're like, this is how I live and this is what makes me happy. And I'm gonna like neuter myself, as you say, to like increase my own happiness. Like, am I caught in a delusion? Like feeling like what I say should be said, you know, like, am
Is
I
it
being,
cathartic?
am I being too arrogant?
Is it cathartic for you? What do you gain from it? Let's ask you at this point, because I see your posts and I enjoy them. They're always very, just like yours, Brian. They're very intelligent, very well thought out, and not a misspelling or a mispunctuation either, which is amazing. Um, what do you gain from that? What are you expecting back from that? Are you looking for engagement, or is it just cathartic for you to go through the process?
Ryan, you want to take it first?
Yeah, for sure. For me, like I have a high level interest now, especially over the last like 8 to 10 years, into trying to look at an argument and not just pick a side, but like realize that I'm try to get yourself on the right argument with some in-depth thinking, and I guess trying to breathe a splash of reason into some of these arguments, because what we see on social media, we all know it's often a cesspool of emotionally charged words and factual less statements and this and that. And so I feel the need generally for all people everywhere. I feel like we should be teaching more psychology and critical thinking and things of those nature, like in K through 12, to get people more prepared to think properly. And now I've just kind of transferred all of that. I don't know what the right word is for it. That right online, I'm trying to dissect arguments. I'm trying to find some rational reasoning to it. And so I actually enjoy the unpacking of an argument, the not necessarily the debate, not necessarily the winning, but even trying to find something. If you have someone that's throwing something back at you that you think is like way off the deep end and crazy, trying to like find a nugget of truth or somewhere in their argument, like a good point that you can use to help better form your own opinion. And I find that whole process very interesting. Like I'm very driven to it. So it might be largely selfish on my end to just like understand things in my own way better. Yeah, I guess I don't really know what to add after that, but I definitely feel compelled to do it, but it's evolving, it's shifting. I'm noticing more and more that you can't just settle an argument with a really good point. We have to understand that people are going to be locked into certain things no matter what, and it's outside of our control. And we need to come to a place of peace with that to a degree too, like along the way.
Yeah.
Good answer.
You would say your net output from it, though, is a positive. Like, it is still enjoyable for you to engage in that kind of debate.
Yeah, my style now that I aim for, I do believe the net result of that is a positive for the person I'm talking with and myself, with better understanding issues and thinking about them.
One of my favorite things that you say on your posts a lot, Ryan, and it's kind of an asshole thing to say because I know your tone of voice and I've known you for a long time. So I can kind of hear you saying it sometimes.
Right on.
But I love the sentiment of it, is when you say, if you have any evidence on this that might prove the otherwise or might change my mind, please share it, post it, give me the link. I would love to have my mind changed on this.
Exactly.
I've seen you say that a couple times.
Yeah.
And I love that way of thinking. And yeah, it can come off condescending or it can come off a little facetious, but I think that sentiment is a good thing, because I'm kind of the same way. And that's, if I just wanted to argue politically online, I would probably just post a sentence or post a meme and get that feeling out there and be like, yeah, I kick ass. But I sit there and I look up facts. I check my grammar. I'll rewrite something. I'll try and put myself in the perspective of who I'm talking to and be like, well, how are they going to view it if I say this way? And I wouldn't go through all that if I was just looking for that immediate gratification. For me personally,
good point.
I am looking for that understanding. And that understanding, there's been a very, 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 very few times that I have actually changed someone who thought differently's viewpoint. And I don't want to call anyone out, so I won't get into specifics, but there have been a few times where someone was like, you know, maybe they didn't even come out and say, yeah, you know what, you are right. But usually you'll see a post that they do a week later and the tone of it is completely different. And that's like, holy shit. You know, like in general, posting like that, arguing, and even caring about that kind of stuff is exhausting. It does suck. I was just talking to a close friend, an artist friend the other day. He's much younger than us, and basically saying he just wants to tune out. He doesn't care. He cares because he posted a meme on his Instagram story. And then I started talking to him about it. He's like, you know, I just don't care. I just, it's so futile. I just want to live my happy life and then die. And that is such a common viewpoint among people who think our way. But I also feel like that is like a really sad thing to kind of just like, you know, kind of like how you're saying, Phil, like your happiness is happier because you're disengaged. And that's not a judgment on you, but I don't think we should have to disengage to be able to achieve happiness. And so the reason I word my post that way is to try and legitimately avoid that immediate satisfaction and look for actually communicating my ideas with somebody or setting them up to give me an idea that I can learn from. Because every single time that I get into one of those conversations, I'm learning something every time. And if I'm not, I did it wrong. I'm either learning something because I educated myself through trying to figure out what I wanted to say, or maybe just through verbalizing it. A lot of times when we say things, we're like, oh, I never realized that's actually how I thought about it. I just had this abstract thought in my head, but when I had to put words to it, it taught me more about how I view it. Or I'll learn from the person actually giving me a viewpoint that I didn't think about, or a fact that I didn't think about. Or sometimes, Lord help me, I find out I'm completely wrong.
No way. Nonsense.
So it's still worthwhile to me, you know. For our listeners, I don't think any one of us here is trying to tell you to engage or not engage. Phil chooses not to. He's one of the happiest people I know. Me and Ryan, we are constantly engaging, and I would say both of us are fairly mentally damaged. So you can make the kind of view, take away from that what you want, but
maybe it's because I'm of advanced age, right? And I've got this limited amount of time left on this earth, me and my jitterbug. So I don't want to pollute it. I just, you know, I see enough negativity. And from a bystander's viewpoint, and I get the same level of anxiety from engaging online that I did when I kickboxed, and I could channel that. I could channel that anxiety into a physical outlet that would benefit myself. When I'm online doing this, engaging with motherfuckers, I don't have that. There's no outlet, and so it gets internalized, and it creates this internal combustion that I'm not comfortable with. I get anxious about it, and I would rather not. I would just rather not, you know. But it's fun to sit and watch you guys work because you're both masters at it. So I've got a front motherfucking row seat for that shit. Thank you very much.
You know what? Hey, Leaf, maybe you and I are still somewhat motivated to do what we do right now, but like Phil was kind of alluding to, like in good time, we'll say retire, and we'll pass the baton to the next younger crowd that's more energetically engaged, and we can sit back and share some good time, smiling meme, feel good types of things, just get to that place. Maybe it's all incremental over time, you know?
Or maybe there's a fine line that you can ride in between, you know, between every aggro post that you have, you've got a dick joke.
Yeah.
That's what I try and do. I mean, if you look at my feed, obviously sometimes it's like 3 or 4 political things, 5 in a row. But then I'll have something like, I'm not going to lie, I had a drawer full of sweatpants before coronavirus.
You did. And I celebrated that. I was like, yeah, go Leaf.
There you go.
It is funny, though, because of the algorithms online. When I do like a political post, it gets far more exposure than like a song that I release or something. It's like, oh, you got 5 likes on your song. You said something about Trump and got 20. responses. It's
Yeah.
weird how
If I put a picture of Yang online, it's like, boom, the shit just blows up, with love and celebration, As soon as I talk about, say, Liberty University reopening, it's like people are like,
yeah. The thing I will say that I think ties all of us together and will allow us to put a bow on this is, I don't know if you guys have experienced this yet, but I have definitely had people that I've met out in public face to face who've said like, your social media feed is awesome. Keep posting that way. Like, I love what you're doing. I love those posts are on point, and it's usually not like, oh, your music's awesome or this. They're like, no, your social media feed. I love your posts. I like all your posts. And I'm sure, I don't know, Phil, have you gotten that from like your Feel Good? You have a really good social media. People respond to your shit.
Yeah, I mean, my response rate, it's not like I'm gauging my response rate, but it's how fucking stupid is that, right?
Like, have people come up to you in person and been like, dude, you're funny as hell. I love to watch your shit online.
Just last week, I ran into an old friend that I haven't laid eyes on in years, but we chat from time to time. And he told me, he goes, I live vicariously through your feed. He goes, I love your positivity. I love your jokes. He goes, I can tell that most of them are original.
Right.
And so it's when I get feedback like that, it's not like I do this for feedback. I do this because there's this it's a humor outlet for me. So it is cathartic for me to put something out. And the ice cream on top of that, or the cherry on top is the response. I get a lot of laughing emojis, a lot of people saying, oh my God, reposting, thank you very much. And I garner a lot from that. So
that's huge. When you see a laugh emoji, you know that you've actually literally made a positive impact in someone's life for that split second, a moment, the distraction, everything. That's real. That's absolutely
what we're talking about. That's what I'm putting out, brothers.
Right on,
and I think that's kind of why I brought that up, is because it doesn't matter if you're more political posts or you're more humor or whatever you're posting, but it's important to realize not just the people that are in your social network, but other people see things like that online, and other people see what you're doing. And I think no matter what your intention is to make people happy, to debate, to make a political point, is remember that people are looking at you. And if you're doing it in the right way, you're doing it in a correct way, in a smart, logical way, in a way that allows different viewpoints and doesn't close people out, that you should have people come up to you in person and be like, you're doing it right, like, keep doing it. And that's why I keep posting the way I do, is I'm like, damn, like, it feels so futile and like such a trudge sometimes. But then when that happens, it makes me feel like it's super worthwhile and very important. Right. So no matter why you are posting online, get the right intention. And then, I think that let the gates open at that point. Enjoy yourself.
What I've found also is because, there's a tone to my post, and they're humor-based, fun shit, that when I do throw something out with gravity, it hits a lot harder.
Right on. Yeah.
I'd like to feel that way sometimes, but it's funny. I'll just post something that's so brainless or that I really don't care about, and it gets such a response. And then, like, I just released a new song a couple days ago, and it did well, but I've done stupid shit in the last month that did way better. It's like, what the fuck?
So much of that, Leaf, I'm positive, is attention span. It's like you see something quick, flashy, it's like a 1 second read or an image, and that can just get so many more people who are scrolling. Hey, what's that? Bam, oh, that's hilarious. But if you require time from people to interact with something you're doing, no matter how good the content is, it's just going to drop off a cliff to some degree with the amount of interaction. That's just the nature of our attention spans as humans.
The benefit of this virus is motherfuckers got time now.
Yeah, right, yeah.
People should do more deep dives. To watch the video, watch the fucking video.
Beginning to end.
Yes.
Word. Well, we're pretty much at the end of our conversation here. So as we did last time, I think it went well for us to each kind of try and just have a last little rant or a last little point. Ryan, I know you said you were completely unprepared to do that. So how about you go first?
Perfect. That sounds great. everyone just try to find whatever you can to enjoy yourself, whether it's that escapism, that the walk around the block. I mean, there's so many things going through people's heads right now. So many will my business be around when this is all said and done? Will everyone I know and love be around when this is all said and done? These are some severe things that are inflicting our minds right now. So do what you can. Subscribe to Phil Davies' social media stream and laugh, when you can, and just, it's totally okay. Take that separation, have some fun, ignore all that other stuff, and because it's really important for your mental health.
I would say go out and enjoy the sun. It's beautiful out right now. I'm sitting inside kind of wishing I was out there, and in a matter of minutes I will be. But go outside and enjoy yourself, enjoy your neighbors, from a distance, enjoy the family that surrounds you inside the house. Go shoot a gun, just not at your neighbor. Go find a reason to get your medical card and medicate, and it'll make everything better, man. Trust me. So a wonderful conversation we've had here today with you guys, man. It's always a pleasure and an honor to be the comedy relief within this group. So yeah.
Awesome.
The point I want to leave everyone with is that, as we were just talking about, kind of, it is a little tedious to see all this same shit online right now. I'm a huge podcast listener, and a lot of my favorite podcasts, This American Life, Hidden Brain, Freakonomics, I go and I look and I'm like, oh, a new episode, sweet. And then it's something about COVID or coronavirus or being self-isolated. So I'd like to say, for our project here that we're doing right now, what we're planning to do is to try and offer things that might touch on the current situation as far as coronavirus, staying at home, blah, 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 etc. But we're going to try and pull ourselves back from a little bit of directly tying everything to coronavirus and COVID. While it's important to be educated, it's also something that everyone needs right now, to just have an hour, to have 2 hours, however long this episode is, to try and let your mind think about something else. And if you can actually learn something along the way, that's even better. So what I'm going to ask is, if you do watch this episode and you want to see any kind of different content from us, if there's a subject that you think we would have a good conversation on, if there's something that you would like to just hear us talk about, let us know. It's super easy. We're all on the socials. You can leave a comment down in the basement where the trolls belong, or you can just subscribe to our channel. Let us know what's going on. We're all easily found. So hit us up and help us take the conversation somewhere that you guys want to hear it. Because again, we can sit around and talk about whatever we want to, but we're actually trying to communicate not just with each other, but with the listeners out there, and with anyone you talk to. Hopefully we can help you get an idea in your head, and then, oh, I heard this on this stupid little podcast I was listening to. It made me think in a different way now. Just to spread that wave around a little bit. So help us continue the conversation. And until next time, guys, I've enjoyed the conversation, and listeners, thank you so much. We'll talk to you later.
I have no pants on.